Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boomer Buzz channel, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry, and today I'm going to have an interesting conversation, at least interesting to me, as we talk about the future of the Bears in terms of building the roster. So there's two important things that I want to start off with before we can dive into the actual roster and all that and, get specifics. These are more big conceptual. The first thing is we got to talk about Justin Fields. So Justin Fields, which I've said many times, and I know I got a lot of backlash prior for simply pointing out what was happening on film. But I've said from the beginning, during the draft process, at the end of the day, this is a draft channel. So before I knew that we had Justin Fields, I told y'all how I felt about his potential and kind of what I saw him as a prospect. And then when we got him, I was extremely excited. And so with Justin Fields, at this point, I think everybody understands. This is going to go, well, more than likely, it's going to go one of two ways. We're waiting to see if Justin Fields is going to go to the Lamar Jackson way or if he's going to go to the Josh Allen way. And I've had people who are accusing me of hating on Lamar Jackson and all that stuff in the past, and that's absolutely silly. But it is a difference in the way they play, and I mean, you can't really deny that. At the end of the day, Lamar Jackson, he's good at what they have in terms of their philosophy. The way I say it is Lamar Jackson is a headache when they're doing what they want to do. They want to stop you early. They want to get up one or two scores, and then they want to run the clock out. That's what the Ravens want to do, and when they're doing that, Lamar Jackson is an absolute headache. But Josh Allen, on the other hand, is a headache all game. Whether it's the first drive of the game and he's matching your touchdown with a touchdown, or if you only got 3 and he's taking the lead with a touchdown, or if it's the first drive for the whole game and he's giving them an early lead with a touchdown, that's a headache. He's a headache with 30 seconds left in the fourth quarter, down by 6. Thinking in this one play, is he going to flip the field and get in the field goal range? He's a headache no matter what the situation is. And so that's the question that we're waiting to see. Is Justin Fields going to go the Lamar route, or is he going to go the Josh Allen route? Because at the end of the day, Justin Fields is a more dynamic runner than Josh Allen ever will be. Josh Allen can run, but he's not a home run hitter like Fields. And Fields' arm is better than Lamar Jackson's will ever be. Lamar Jackson has a pretty good arm, but he doesn't have the arm strength that Justin Fields has. And so that's just kind of where we are. That's what we're waiting to see which way it's going to go. And the thing that I want to say about Justin Fields is it's largely going to come down to him. The coaching is going to play an important part, but it's largely going to come down to him. And the fans and the media, they're going to blame everybody. They're going to blame everybody else. All 5 of those offensive linemen, one by one, they'll blame the receivers, the coaches, Gatsby, Eberflus, Ryan Poles. They're going to blame everybody else before they blame Justin Fields. But at the end of the day, the truth is, it's going to come down to him. This league, more than any other time in the past, it comes down to what players do in the offseason. Or not even off season, in the off time. That's true, I think, in most leagues, but with the NFL, because of what the players did, taking away practice time, taking away the off season time, the OTA time, that stuff becomes more important. But also the resources and access you have to other players and to former players and to getting your body together, all of that is what makes the difference. There's not a lot more important to a running back than taking the offseason to change their diet and leaning out, or becoming more explosive, working on that, or becoming more flexible. There's nothing more important to a receiver than getting into these camps or whatever you want to call it, where they're able to work their releases. The releases for receivers was never a cool thing to talk about. Now people talk about releases for receivers like they talk about N1 crossovers. And so that has elevated so many receivers. You got Von Miller with his pass rush university. You got George Kittle with his tight end university. Being able to get with other players and to pick their brains to learn the very detailed nuances of what they do is important. And for the most part, a quarterback, it's a mental game. You aren't going to increase your arm strength. It is what it is. We've seen some players show us you can increase your accuracy to a degree, but you're not going to completely change it. I always hear people talking about rebuilding a throwing motion. You can't rebuild a throwing motion because that's built over decades of muscle memory. You can retool it and change it, but you're not going to vastly change who you are as a thrower. And so the quarterbacks, their growth comes in the mental game. And again, with so much time and resources and access, why more quarterbacks don't get better, I don't know. But we got to see. And speaking of Lamar Jackson and even Kyler Murray and other, players, you got a lot of people who are just used to having things come easy to them, mostly because they got a stacked team. And they, at least in this generation, not even this generation, any generation, some of them take exception to people suggesting they can get better. You have some people who are close to the Ravens, Shannon Sharp being one of them, who has said that Lamar Jackson does not take well to criticism. He doesn't take critical feedback well. And that's not to call him out. Like I said, Kyler Murray, we know his whole situation. And so you got a lot of these players that just don't have a personality to get better. And so that's what we got to find out about Justin Fields, is that if you're really dedicated to what you say, you need to be able to get into the film. You need to be able to get wherever it is with other quarterbacks, with your coaches, with your college coach, and you need to start to understand the game, because that's where a quarterback wins, point blank period, more so than any other position. And so a lot of this is going to come down to Justin Fields. No matter what anyone tells you, his maturation is going to come down to him becoming a student of the game and perfecting his craft. And so, I hate to say it, but in a very small, what's the word I'm looking for? A very tight parameter, I have to agree with Skip Bayless, which I never thought I would say. But if you're talking about in terms of who is more like Brady, we're not talking about who has his talent. We're not talking about who's the next Brady. Just who's more like him as a player. It's Burrow over Mahomes. And you can win with both, but Burrow has shown you that he's going to be more of a know where to go. And Mahomes is much more Aaron Rodgers. Mahomes and Josh Allen are Aaron Rodgers' sons, as the kids say. They're much more of a make a play. And so, not to say that one is, again, better than the other, but when you're talking about the highest level of quarterback, we know what that looks like as far as understanding not only what your offense is doing, but then reacting to what the defense is showing you. And so a lot of this is going to come down to Fields. Now, personally, I'm not 100% sold that polls now look at him as the future. I'm not. Not to say that I have any concrete evidence to say otherwise, but a lot of people are like, okay, it's Fields, let's move on to the other parts. I'm not so sure Poles and them feel that way, because at the end of the day, these media and these fans are going to say one thing about him running and all that stuff. And that's cool, it's exciting, but I think the real football minds know that in terms of what is going to be a sustainable winner as a passer, he has not shown a lot. And so I don't know if they're committed to that. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be or should be. I'm just saying I'm not 100% sold on that because they didn't draft him. So I would say it's, 80% safe to say we're going to go ahead and build around him. But I just wanted to throw that out there. But my point is, what happens with Fields going forward is going to be a lot on Fields and his ability to get better. And then the second thing is teams aren't built like they're used to. Like, obviously, we know what the draft is, but a lot of people talking about the cap and the cap space. Understand that at the end of the day, you are not going to build a team from free agency. I mean, from the decades, we've seen that most teams that spend the most in free agency aren't going to be the ones to win. This ain't baseball. But in the last 2 years, we've really seen a shift where a lot of reasons teams don't build the same way. You got the cap maneuvers, I guess, if you want to call it that, where GMs understanding the voidable years, they're understanding the benefit of signing bonus, they're extending players a lot. Players don't get to free agency like they used to. And so when you look at the free agency class, potentially not great, but even then we don't know who's going to make it there. So the point being, if you've seen the last 2 or 3 years, if you really are going to make a splash with changing your roster, it's going to be through trades. That's just the name of the game right now, because teams, much like the NBA, they want to get something for these players before they leave, and some of these teams want to extend them. So it's just free agency is not the big puzzle piece that it used to be. When you look at a lot of the big acquisitions and you look at the ones that have panned out, they're mostly trades. And so we talk about the cap space, people talk about the free agency, and again, the class isn't great, but that's right now. We don't even know who's going to make it there. So you got a Deron Payne, and that stuff's nice, but who's going to make it there? But if you're really going to make a big splash, more than likely it's going to come through the trade, and then obviously hitting big in the draft if you get a player that you're able to bring in and fit and unlock their talent, and they're one of the top young players. So those are the two big things that I want to talk about when we're thinking about building a roster. Now, going towards the actual roster, and I put up a poll if you want to go to the community and vote on it, but talking about position-wise, like building this roster, what would make a difference? What would make a big difference for us? And I term it, and I put it in terms of 3 players at positions. If you had 3 to add to this roster for next year, what would make the biggest impact? And for me, it's really in the trenches. This might be a surprise to some people, but receiver's not on my list. Like, if I'm looking at our roster and I'm thinking about it, I honestly go to either an edge rusher and an interior D lineman, a disruptive one, or 2 edge rushers and an offensive tackle. Sorry, edge rusher, interior D lineman, offensive tackle, or 2 edge rushers, offensive tackle. And the reason is because the trenches, I mean, we know, again, it might be cliche, but the trenches affect so much, and they change things, especially on the offensive line. Because if you get, which to me, well, I'm just thinking right side because our right tackle's not great, but I think Jenkins is already good. But if you get the right tackle, Jenkins becomes even better. Or if you get the right left tackle, Cody Whitehair becomes even better, which then allows the center to become better. And so there's always a multiplier effect when you add offensive linemen. And then defensive line wise, I mean, we know there's no bigger impact than a pass rusher. And so there's that. But not only that, you're talking about an edge setter, somebody that could set the edge in the run game, or just somebody that has good motor and adds those extra effort plays too. And so that's kind of where my mind goes. So if we look at it, we already talked about Fields. We know that offensive line wise, we can run block week in and week out. We can run block against teams. Now, part of that is Justin Fields and the threat he adds, but part of that is our ability. And again, Justin Fields, his ability as a runner adds to the efficiency of the offensive line. Where they don't have to do as much. And the same thing with the receivers. So it's all a multiplier effect off Justin Fields. But at the end of the day, you're talking about an offensive line that can run block really well week in and week out. And so if we add, that one person, let me back up. So we're talking about our roster. A good offensive line is going to help any running back, but Montgomery is definitely a dog in terms of, I hate saying that, he's a good player in terms of he has something extra with not only his receiving ability, but his ability to get extra yards. But Khalil Herbert fills in well. There's always good running backs. You can do well there. Kmet has shown to be a solid tight end like I thought he would be. And we run multiple sets, so you're talking about specialty guys like a Kyle Juszczyk with the 49ers. I forgot the guy's name in Denver. He was coming on this year. But I'm talking about specialty guys that can do specific type blocking things to add to Kmet. And you can find that if you look right in the free agency or the draft. Then you go to the receivers. Like I said, there's a multiplier effect. You got Mooney healthy. We know not only his ability to his ball skills, but then his speed too is legit. Claypool, I do think, is a good complementary piece. I don't think he was worth what we gave up, but we got him now. And so with those two, you're already sitting pretty. With the run game, the way we do it, you got Montgomery, you got Kmet coming out of the backfield or late releasing as two options. You don't need much more than two receivers to be out there. So then whether it's EQ or if it's Pringle or it's an upgrade, that third person isn't super important. And so, again, with what Fields provides as a run threat, that opens up a lot of space for those receivers. And we saw that, again, Green Bay has been broken this year, but still we saw that where the receivers can run open, especially when the play is extended. And so what we have now is fine, but then you add that offensive tackle at the right tackle where, and this is the thing people got to realize, the tackles is not, or offensive line in general, is not so much about your one-on-one pass rush reps, which it is. It's 55%, I would say, which is the majority. But the other big chunk is your ability to handle movement, because it used to be different, but now with the way teams play, you have to be able to handle movement. Because teams are going to stunt, they're going to twist, they're going to game, they're going to blitz. And if you not only have a person that can go one-on-one, but a person that's smart enough to understand how they fit in the pass pro, that's going to help the guard in the center a lot. And so if you get one of those legit dudes, you're fixing a lot of problems just with one player. And so that's why I say getting a tackle on either side is going to be big, because Jenkins is good. And like I said, Cody Whitehair is good enough. What we do with center, we'll see whether it's Lucas Patrick or Mustaford. But obviously they have the most help. So I think that's okay. It's just that tackle spot that could really change things. Defensive-wise, you got Sanborn and Morrow. They can do what you need them to do. Sanborn is a liability in coverage. You could probably find a sub person to come in for nickel, but that's most of the time. Sanborn is not going to absolutely kill us 100%, but he is a liability in coverage. And so having him and Morrow out there, you can get away with, especially with a better defensive line. So I don't need us to have a huge upgrade there. Like, having Roquan was nice, but I don't need us to have a huge upgrade there. So then you look at the defensive line, and we talk about edge rushers. Like, the pressure, I don't need to talk about a whole lot because we know what that is. But in terms of just the attention that it brings to somebody that frees up other people, or even if you are blitzing, like, that's why I said somebody with a motor matters. Motor, if you watch my All-Pro series with defense, especially D-line, the motor matters the most. So whether we're stunning, whether we're twisting, whether we're blitzing, whatever, you got a guy that's going to continue to grind to the whistle. They're going to make things happen, whether that's coverage sacks, which most sacks are, or whether that's recovering a fumble or causing a fumble. Just having a guy like that people have to worry about on the edge is a giant improvement. But make no mistake, when you're talking about a team that is a competitor, you got to have multiple weapons on the defensive line. Like, that is pretty consistent in terms of the better teams. And so when you have somebody that's an edge presence and you have two, that changes everything. Because what happens with the middle of the defense, the linebackers and the interior, doesn't matter a whole lot if you got two guys that people have to worry about on the edge. Or if you like the Cowboys, where you have one who takes all the attention, the other one is very good, and they can eat on those one-on-ones. But even if you, again, take it from a standpoint of having an edge player and then an interior player who's disruptive, I mean, you know, what was Von Miller able to do with Aaron Donald? My bad, I was about to say Anthony Davis. But what was he able to do? And what would, you know, and then even thinking back to Denver's Super Bowl with DeMarcus Ware on the end of his career and Von Miller. So that dynamic changes the defense a lot. And it's always going to be the D-line because they affect the most people, like I said. So Kyler Gordon, who I still don't think is a slot, I think he'd probably be better outside. He's going to be 10 times better with a defensive line that's disruptive. He doesn't have to cover for as long. And that goes for everybody. I mean, Brisker's not a cover guy. He's good at what he does. Eddie Jackson, will he be back if we get somebody else? All of those people are amplified if we get a defensive line that can be disruptive. And I've been talking about this for years. Even though we got Khalil Mack, he just wasn't what he should have been. And so that affected our team, and it affected us triple when he wasn't playing. So for me, there's no question in my mind. Like, again, Kyler Gordon, you're not going to move off of. He was your first pick. Brisker is really good. He's solid. I think he's going to stay. What we do with Eddie Jackson, I don't know. Jalen Johnson, very solid. I think he's going to stay. Vildor and all those guys, we could upgrade on the other side. Again, to me, that should be Kyler Gordon. And then we could upgrade the nickel. But if you're, again, talking about just taking what we had this year and adding new pieces, is no doubt in my mind it's on the D-line. Either two edge guys or interior guy and an edge guy. And so with those three players, you completely change the team. Now, Justin Fields has to mature and get to a point where he can do some things passing wise, but overall you take this team, again, you look at all these teams, all these defenses, what they have to do because they're so worried about Justin Fields, and you just add a little bit of playmaking ability in the pass game like we saw with Green Bay, minus the last drives. But you add a little bit of that, a little bit of awareness, and those receivers don't got to do much to be open. So for me, it's in the trenches. I go offensive tackle, and then I go D-line. And the only combination I would say is not too interior, because let's just say we transported Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen to the team. Yes, that would improve us, but man, you could scheme around that. It would not be the same. So it is edge, number one, and then it's another edge or it's an interior guy, and then it's offensive tackle. So obviously there's a lot of ways this could play out, but in terms of looking ahead, that's how I see us taking the next step in terms of building our roster. So that's it for me. Go down to the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.